In another life, at one of my previous employments, I worked with a leader who had all the external markers of success. They were considered a hero to most. They had the title, they had the influence and the reputation, but behind closed doors, the team was burnt out. Trust and morale was low. And although we were all there because we cared so much about the mission, organizational commitment was diminishing. They were constantly looking for the next new thing, the new strategy to respond to the moment, reacting to everything, between what was happening outside to what was happening within, with the breakdown within the organization. But the thing was, no one wanted to listen to what the team was feeling, right? And it didn't take long before people just stopped communicating. They stopped speaking up. Folks started quiet quitting, right? Folks were gossiping. They were creating theories about what was happening in the organization. And eventually, the organization started to lose some of the brightest minds. People started to leave. And as the team shrunk, the pressure got bigger and things got worse. But instead of facing the hard truth of what was happening, the leadership became even more reactive. They went in their feelings, right? And so this caused them to become even more rigid. Um, it was really ego that started to lead more than anything. And this experience really stayed with me. As a leader of an organization, if you have a focus that is social enterprise or social impact, the most important work that you can do is the work on yourself. That is why I came up with the Great Leadership Pyramid Framework. It's a framework that really helps you lead from the inside out. Sometimes the way to fix the problem is by first fixing yourself and growing yourself. And so today I want to walk you through the 5 layers of this pyramid, each one with a habit that is going to help you to deepen your leadership and your impact. So let's start at the bottom layer of this pyramid, right? The bottom layer of this is self-reflection. And the habit around this is to create some daily space for inner check-ins. I love this quote by Aristotle that says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And what he meant is that before we can understand others, before we can make wise choices and lead effectively, we must understand ourselves, our motives, our values, our patterns, and even be able to recognize our blind spots. It's about creating these quiet moments where we can ask, what's really going on inside me right now? What is it that I need to be paying attention to? And what's mine to own, right? I want to share a story with you. A gentleman by the name of Brian Arabashi, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I'm going to put a link to his story below. But he shared on LinkedIn where he realized something important was happening around him, but it happened a little too late, right? He didn't really know his team. He knew their output, the performances. He was looking at all of that, but he didn't really know their experience within the organization. So he decided to pause for a moment and he reflected on how he had been showing up. And he did something very simple but powerful. He reached out to each of his team members and he asked them for honest feedback. He didn't use that opportunity to defend himself, but he used that opportunity to understand. And the response was, it was real, it was raw, it was vulnerable, sometimes hard to hear. But that moment of reflection, it really reshaped everything for him. It strengthened the trust with his team. It helped improve morale because now people are like, all right, he's interested in what I have to say. He's interested in how I feel. And it reconnected him with his team and with the purpose because he shift from this place of using a top down model of making them do to a space of just being in alignment and sharing space with them, right? It didn't come from a new strategy or some new tool or something. It came from a leader who was willing to slow down, reflect, and lead himself first. And know that you don't need, it doesn't need to be a come to Jesus moment, right? It doesn't need to be big moments like this for you to do this. So the habit that you want to be able to create is to find 5 minutes a day, right? Whether it's before meetings, before you send an email, or even at the end of the day. That's become one of my rituals. And just ask yourself questions like, what did I notice about how I showed up today? What is showing up for me right now? Where was I aligned? Where was I off? Right? And just start to journal some of this. Just keep it simple, right? Just a daily practice, or like I like to call them a ritual, right? That it'll be like these little tiny shifts in the trajectory of your evolution as a leader. Self-reflection, it begins with noticing what's happening within you, your thoughts, your emotions, your body sensations, and even your habitual reaction to things, right? So with this one practice daily, it will make you clear, and clarity is powerful. So that practice is 5 minutes a day. Get clear, be quiet, pause, and journal any insights that are coming up for you. It'll shift your leadership from a place of just being on autopilot to being in alignment. The second layer is self-awareness. And the habit is to track your triggers and your tendencies. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful or important skills for a leader. It's like turning on the lights in a room that you've been walking through in the dark. Suddenly you can see what's been there all along. God forbid there's like you turn on the lights and all these roaches just scatter. Right? Your tendencies, your triggers, your strengths, again, your blind spots, right? And when you can see clearly, you can lead more intentionally. So you want to do something like what I call a trigger tracking, right? Just get in the habit of noticing recurring moments that activate you, set you off, frustrate you, and try to be curious about what's at the root of that. We will say, well, it's that person that's at the root of that. No, it's more than that person. It's something that they said, right? So start to ask yourself, what situations tend to where I feel more closed off? When do I feel most reactive or controlling, right? Where does my ego show up the most? Awareness makes space for choice. This is an ongoing process of understanding who you are, how your behaviors affect others, how your inner state influences your outer state, right? How you're aligned and misaligned, right? And so you start to see the patterns here where self-reflection looks within, self-awareness helps you see how that internal landscape is showing up in the world, right? So it allows you to build psychological safety in your workplace, model emotional maturity, right? and inspire accountability, not just in others, but in yourself. Right? So this is a muscle that you want to train. It's one of the most important muscles that you can build to stay tuned into yourself and your team. The third layer is self-realization. And this habit is naming what's true for you. I love this quote by Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Self-realization is about living in alignment with your truth. This means clarifying your values, naming your purpose, owning your voice. This is the type of work that I love to do with leaders, is to help them be clear about what their values are, right? To understand their purpose and to own their voice in that, so that as they go out and lead in the world, they're leading from that place. Self-awareness gives us that mirror, but self-realization hands us a map. So while self-awareness reveals how we move through the world, our behaviors, our patterns, our impacts, self-realization is about who we're becoming and what we're truly here to do. So a habit or practice would be, this is one you could do in a group, right? I would say share one decision each week that reflects your deeper why. It's so great to become grounded in that and to remind you who you are and what you're here to do and why you're doing it. I think a lot of us are forgetting that. And invite others into that, especially if you're a mission-driven social impact organization. Weekly to do this with your team. Get everybody in alignment with that. Another great practice you can do on your own is a meditative visualization. I visualize almost every day. Spend 5 to 10 minutes visualizing your future self, how they speak, how they lead, how they make decisions, how they rest. Let this version become your internal North Star that you step into. You know, I share a lot about my own self-realization process, and how it has been like an awakening to my deeper purpose and understanding my values and my full potential. And it's not about arriving at a final destination or final version of myself. It's about embodying myself more fully, moment by moment, day by day. We are on a journey, right? So self-realization is this bridge between knowing yourself and becoming yourself. The fourth layer of this is self-actualization. And this habit is to design your leadership around what matters to you. So if self-reflection is the pause, and self-awareness is the mirror, and self-realization is that map to awakening, then the self-actualization is the embodiment. Self-actualization is when your leadership reflects what you truly and deeply value. It's when you stop chasing the roles and the titles and the accolades and all of that, and you start living your purpose through how you lead. There's another example. It's a story of the CEO of Chloe. It's a cosmetic company, Riccardo Bellini. When he stepped into the leadership role just before the pandemic, everything was pretty much in flux at the organization. But instead of just reacting to the crisis, he asked a deeper question. What kind of leader do I want to be in this moment? There are moments that are calling us into our leadership, but we must be clear about what kind of leadership or what kind of leader it is calling us to be. And what is the legacy that we will leave from this moment? So that reflection for him was a catalyst. That's when he introduced regenerative leadership, focusing on transparency and social impact in the organization. And under his leadership, Chloe became the first luxury fashion house to earn a B Corp certification. He aligned the company's business models with values like empowerment and care for the planet. And he also encouraged his team to do the same, to align their day-to-day decisions with what really mattered to them. That's what this habit is about. It's not just about the work that you're doing, but it's about designing your leadership to reflect what you care about. So here's another habit of reflection for you. Ask yourself daily, where in my leadership am I just going through the motions? I talked about this in my the Leaders We Need Now masterclass, right? The fact that many leaders are on autopilot and that they've lost their vision because of that. And in turn, they've also lost their passion for the work. So you want to be reflecting on these and asking, where do I want to lead with more purpose, more clarity, more alignment? Think about how you can align that in your calendar. What does your calendar reflect? What about the conversations that you're having, the commitments, the things that you're saying yes to? See and look at those to see how those are aligning more closely with your values. When your leadership reflects your values, your impact becomes so much more intentional and more sustainable over time. And then finally, the top layer is self-mastery. And the habit here is to respond, don't react. Self-mastery is the practice of leading with intention, even under pressure. I almost feel like it's monk mode. It's about choosing your impact in every moment. Self-mastery is when all of these other layers that I just discussed, reflection, awareness, realization, actualization, they all come together in an embodied practice. This is the place of being grounded and where you have now the tools and the awareness to move at a pace for reflection and realization. So a daily practice of this would be not just pausing, but breathing before making every decision, just taking a breath, grounding yourself in that moment, even before you open your mouth. Have you ever noticed those leaders, they're in conversation with people and they allow there to be a moment of pause after someone finishes their thought before they start to speak? And they're very intentional with their words. They don't just go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. 4 and 5 minutes later, you've lost the point a minute or two before. And again, it's asking yourself, what does this moment call for me as a leader? What do these people in this room need to hear from me? We're being called at this moment to show up differently as leaders right now. Each layer of this great leadership pyramid asks you to go deeper within yourself, to reflect and to realign. These habits, they're not going to be quick fixes, right? They're like daily choices, rituals, practices in your life. They are what shape a more conscious leader. And over time, they shape the kind of leader that you will become and that's needed, the kind of culture that you will create from this place. So when you think about this pyramid, think about every layer that you go, you're not trying to just reach the top. You're going to be coming back down a few notches. You might even stay at one place for a moment in time, and that's fine. Again, it's not about a destination, but it's just to show you as the layers of you, as you build upon them, where you can be as a more conscious leader, right? So let's reflect real quickly on the great leadership pyramid. We start with self-reflection. We want to create daily space for inner check-ins. We have self-awareness, which is to track your triggers and tendencies, self-realization, name what's true to you, self-actualization, design your leadership around what matters to you, and self-mastery, respond, don't react. So let me ask you, which layer are you currently working in right now? Are you working in any of these, right? And if not, why? And if you need some support with moving into this space, let me know. So drop in the comments below where you are in this pyramid. And if you're not, and if you want to be supported in that journey, let me know and I'll be, happy to help you. So thank you for showing up again. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.